Now let's talk about the Securities Act of 1933 and 1934. What's the difference? Well, 1933 comes before 1934, so that's going to be a memory aid for the fact that 1933 issues guidance for companies that are offering securities prior to their issuance. Okay, so those IPOs. 1934 is offering guidance for securities after they have been issued.
Okay, so let's wrap this up by going through a few additional miscellaneous concepts. So in the world of SEC reporting, Congress set forth the 1933 and 1934 Securities Act, right? So what does that mean? Well, the 1933 Securities Act requires that publicly traded companies that are offering new securities to the general public in either primary or secondary markets file a registration statement. Okay, so furthermore, this act is going to require that investors are provided with a proxy statement in each shareholder meeting. Okay, so a company that intends to sell securities and offers those securities to the general public will be required to register all offered securities with the Securities and Exchange Commission, right, the SEC. So the registration of a company with the Securities Act of 1933 will also require widespread disclosures about the company in addition to management within this registration form. Okay, so a company must describe what they're going to be doing with the proceeds upon the initial issuance of those securities, right? So an example of this can be if they intend to grow the company, how do they intend to do so with those proceeds from that issuance? Okay, so if a company is issuing a registration statement, what needs to be included in that registration statement? Well, some of the required information that must be submitted in that registration statement is going to include the following. The relationship that the new security is being issued has in comparison to the other securities issued, any disclosures related to the securities being offered, information similar to that filed in the annual filing, audited financial statements, and descriptions of business risk factors. Okay, so what's the difference between 1933 versus the 1934 Securities Act? We just said that the 1933 Securities Act is talking specifically about newly issued securities to the general public. 1934 Securities Act is going to provide guidance to securities that have already been issued, all right? So they're currently being traded. They're circumventing to issuers. People are buying and selling on a day-to-day basis in an active market, all right? So an easy way to remember this, 1933 comes before 1934. 1933 is offering guidance for newly issued securities, right, before they enter the market. Whereas 1934 is talking about guidance related to securities that have already been issued, right? So post-issuance. In addition to that, it's going to provide requirements for periodic reporting and disclosures to the general public. Okay, so bottom line, SEC reporting topics is miscellaneous in the grand scheme of things, but this could be an extra 1 or 2 points that could add value to your overall score if you spend the extra half hour to 1 hour going through all this in greater detail.